In the 1980s, in the Vancouver suburb of Richmond, British Columbia, a woman would report more than 100 instances of harassment and several violent attempts on her life until one day she is found with her arms and legs tied behind her back, dead. The RCMP never did conclude that it was a murder, however. They believed it was an accident or a suicide, though her family believed otherwise. Join me and my friend Stanley as we discuss this case and give our ideas of what might have happened in the curious case of Cindy James. Get right into it. I'm recording.
Oh.
Can we talk about openings and how fantastic this is?
Openings?
Yeah. So, what's going on, everybody? I'm Samuel, your host, and you are?
Me? I am Sam's friend Stan, the guy.
We like to call him Mr. Stanley. When I first became friends with him on Discord, his name is Saint, or his name is Stanalyzer, but it looks a lot like Saint Analyzer, so there's that about him. So here we are again with episode number 5. It's kind of a follow-up episode to last week's, and also our usual meet and greet and get to know Mr. Stanley. Hello, Mr. Stanley. What have you been playing for video games this week?
Oh god. Been kind of all over the place this week. Diablo 2 Resurrected, open beta weekend.
Oh,
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
No
yeah.
way.
So if you had caught on to that, you could have been playing that for the last 2 days. It's a lot of fun.
If I had time to play video games.
That's true. Yeah, you've been working so hard. And then Wolcen has had a lot of updates. Wolcen Lords of Mayhem on Steam.
Right.
Pretty good game. Very small development group. Was really buggy on release. It's had a lot of updates. Very fun. And Genshin Impact, because I love gambling for anime titties.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, that's one way.
So, is that part of like Genshin? Like, they get you different outfits and stuff, or?
No, the outfit. If you want to buy outfits, there are like 2 outfits out for 2 different characters, I think. But you have to pay money for them, so there's no point in doing that, and they're not even great. You can also earn all the currency to gamble for the characters. You can earn a lot of it in game without paying any money.
Right.
As long as you do like your regular daily exercise things.
Okay.
Completions.
Cool. And then how's the Resurrected? It's just revamped visually, right?
Very much revamped visually. It just like I like that you can toggle back and forth between the two so you can see the difference.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
They did that in the Halo remakes too, where you're playing through and you're like, this doesn't seem that good. Is it really that much better? And then you turn it off, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
The polygons are real.
It's a huge difference. Looking at your old characters in Diablo versus like a fully fleshed out 3D model that has just so many dynamic features on it, and then you go back to the old ones, and people just created detail on their own that they just remember. Oh, it looked like this, but it's because I feel like there's like a hint of detail in the pixels, and you just kind of fill in the blanks yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's cool. So Genshin and Diablo 2, D2. What was the third one? What else have you been playing?
Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem.
So what's that?
It's sort of like Diablo, but like a mix of like Diablo with Warhammer fantasy. It's really grimdark and kind of like a really gothic aesthetic, and it's just really neat. It's got a skill tree that's more reminiscent of Passive Exile, if you've ever played that or seen it.
I've seen it. I've never played it. You know, for a video gamer, I'm actually I haven't played too many games, but I like to keep up on my favorites.
Yeah, Wolcen's good. If you like Diablo, you'll probably like Wolcen. It's got some neat endgame stuff that's similar to like the Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, but different enough that it's not the same.
Right. D3, I always had this issue with D3 where it's like, I like it, I like building, and then you kind of get towards that end game moment, and I'm just over it. It's not like it's not like D2 where you just kept grinding to go find runes and really perfecting your build at the end of D3, nearing max level and doing Nephilim rifts and stuff. You just feel like you're kind of like on autopilot. Like if I didn't have something else going on in the background, then I'm really not playing the game. I'm just
exactly. You need to have like a show or something that's going on, because you don't need to pay much attention once you've got your full build and you're just trying to get your primal ancients and perfect specific little tweaks on each piece of gear, then
Yeah.
you are just AFK running through stuff and killing everything, and you're just doing something else in the meantime.
Yeah. But it is actually the story of D3 was really good. Like I like to go back every maybe once a year and just kind of roll through with a new character and play through.
I more or less just like to rewatch a couple of the cinematics. Specifically, Tyrael's Fall from Grace is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great cinematic.
I am justice itself.
But then he also calls the valorous dude a coward, which is like he's
Yeah.
like, you can't judge me, but then also you're a coward despite being the aspect of valor. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some hypocrisy going on there.
That's the scene, man. Like just after Deckard Cain dies, and it just goosebumps every time.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
can't help
amazing.
it. It's the biggest
Also,
goosebump scene.
I like the size of Tyrael's massive hands when Leia like touches him. Her fingers are like the size of she's like a twig. I know. Her whole hand reaches around like one finger.
Yeah.
Like he's monolithic.
He's
even as a human being, he would be like 10 feet tall.
Yeah, he's a thick boy. He's a thick boy. Yeah, ridiculous. I actually haven't played anything new this week. I'm gonna play. Do you remember that little? It was made by the same studios that made the Inside. It's like a side scroller, and it's called Limbo.
Oh yeah, I played Limbo. Limbo was great. That was an amazing game.
I've never played it.
Oh,
so I need to do a little playthrough, and I think I'll make a video about it for my channel here, because I know it's super famous, and I don't know anything about it, and I played like the first like 72 seconds or something once upon a time back at like 2013 or 14, 15, something like that. And
it was an old one.
Yeah, it was back when it was my misspent youth, and I don't know what my brain was doing, but it was not remembering things on purpose back then.
I feel like it was old. It's older than that because I'm pretty sure I played it in high school because I played it on my Xbox 360.
Yeah, probably. That's when I played it for 72 seconds.
You're still in high school in 2013.
Me? No, I wasn't.
No. Then yeah. What? You said 2013 or something like that.
Yeah, 2013. I graduated 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played that game earlier than that. I'm pretty sure it was like 2008 or something that it came out, wasn't it?
I mean, it very well could be.
When did Limbo release?
Are we looking into it?
I'm going to really quick.
Limbop?
September 12th. Nope, that's not the right thing. Limbo game.
Limbo Steam.
2010.
Global.
July 21st, 2010. So it would have actually been right after I graduated. Look
back
at that.
I was a 15-year-old mup back then.
I just graduated when that game came out.
Yeah. Okay. So what else
Fun.
did you do this week?
I had a really fun charcuterie party.
Yeah. I heard about that. Have you heard about any news in the world?
Just depressing stuff mostly because everything's depressing these days. Like Afghanistan is becoming even more of a shithole than it was in terrible, terrible ways.
Yeah, well, I mean, it hasn't changed at all, and that's kind of the problem.
Yeah.
It's still an unruly, unrulable, mountainous opiate den. Yeah, that's tough, though. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Especially as a Canadian, right? Like, if they want water, we got their back, but other than that, we're pretty much there to slap Band-Aids on it. You know. There was a point in the Afghanistan war where Canadians were in the war, and this is, I can't remember where I heard this, but so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but so there's a point where we were in the war, but we were there as like humanitarians from the UN.
Yes.
So not directly supporting the Americans with firepower and stuff like that. So because it's the military, they had to have their fully kitted out weapons ready to go and everything, but they weren't allowed to shoot anything. So they had to have their clips, which were loaded with bullets, and then they had to put duct tape over the top of it so that they could not fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
really?
Then, yeah. Huh. But they were like patrolling with guns as humanitarians, and then the Taliban or insurgents would start shooting at them, and they couldn't do anything except for tell the Americans, which is what they did.
I can't remember specifically hearing about that. I know that when we were doing humanitarian effort, we had like a fire only when fired upon rule, but I don't know specifics about Afghanistan.
Yeah, this was only a certain point in the war, and I can't remember where I heard this anyways. So Yeah, I'm most likely wrong about everything all the time. That's my default position. What else? What else is going on in the world? Something I still need to look into what happened with the Ghislaine Maxwell.
Oh yeah, her trial.
Yeah.
Forgot about that entirely.
How do you spell Ghislaine? That's the one.
I've been in something of a little sealed away bubble. What did I even do this last week? A lot of staying up late playing video games until ungodly hours of the morning.
Really? Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you're not working
and
right now,
housekeeping.
right? You're still injured? You're still on medical discharge?
Yep. Just this. I'm gonna talk to my doctor sometime this week and get a back to work permission slip and give that to HR at some point.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there.
I wish.
But I've still got more tests scheduled, so I'll have to work around that anyway.
Right.
Get to scan my brain.
I'm reading about the Ghislaine Maxwell thing right now.
Ooh, that might be worth just doing. Just so I can comment on it.
Oh, man.
Postpone.
I love how
Postpone.
it says here, like, she's being held in Brooklyn Federal. When was this posted or whatever? But in bold letters, it says where Epstein killed himself in 2019.
July 30th.
This is from August 14th, so this is recent. So they did end up going to court. It doesn't seem like they came to any conclusive pledge not guilty, and that's it. To an
There's something as of
indictment accusing her of grooming underage rape victims to their late financier. If convicted, she faces 80 years behind bars. That's it. Okay, I was expecting more to come of that case, but it does sound like they've denied her all of her claims as to like, oh, this isn't relevant anymore because they waited too long, blah, 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 blah. So she's not getting an inch, which is good. And I'm not reading anything about her killing herself, which is also good. So yeah, I mean, there's that. What else is going on in the world? I know I've heard of stuff. You heard about OnlyFans?
Yeah, that sounds like a terrible idea. We'll see if they survive it. I mean, they might survive.
They probably will
Apparently
because they're large now and they're a multi-billion-dollar company. But
yeah, but they're a multi-billion-dollar because of all of the traffic they get from the sex workers.
Yeah, but I mean, think about like.
I've been seeing a lot of things that said it's not all sexual content. It's just going to be, like actually.
Pornographic.
Masturbating live and actually like having sex with
material.
People. Yeah. Specifically, you can still post like nude or lewd pictures. You just can't be actively engaging in sex.
It still seems weird just because it'd be, no matter what, it's like sexually exploitative content, right? So even if it's just like artistic nudes and so on,
it's still the same thing, like technically.
Yeah, exactly. But so you know, I mean, the big media companies, they do this to their creators all the time, right? It starts off as, oh, these people are the ones that are building our platform, and then they just change stuff, right? That's like the whole monetization of everything on YouTube, right? And their last terms of service update or whatever, they can now monetize any channel for any purpose, even if you as a creator have been demonetized. So no one will ever know.
YouTube can still take ads from you.
Yeah, that's right. So all those people that are still trying to find Alex Jones clips, they can make their money off him, but Alex Jones won't make any, so on, right? And then also like look at what YouTube started as. It was basically like America's funniest home videos or whatever on the internet when I started. Like I think I started watching YouTube when I was like 2007 or 6, and the most popular video was Fred. You remember Fred?
Oh my god!
It was like super. It was just sped up footage with his voice being like, and that was it. And that was YouTube, man. It was just weird. It was that and like the epic fails, you know. That was the whole.
That was a big one.
Yeah, and then a couple small creators, right? Like Bo Burnham when he became famous back then. It's just like some weird kid with a keyboard in his room, like, okay, so here's totally inappropriate social commentary comedy. And you're like, whoa.
Did you see his new special?
Oh yes, I did.
That was very spicy.
Oh man, a little bit of everything, all of the time.
Yeah, big fan. I like that.
The camera angles, everything, it's great. I mean, he's progressed a lot as an artist. I mean, I was watching it, and it's just like watching him develop as a creator. I mean, he's gone all the way from like silly comedy songs on YouTube to like pretty serious social commentary and performance art, right?
Yeah.
Mixed with,
I
like,
mean, yeah.
pretty fantastic editing, pretty fantastic cinematography, the writing. I think he attacked absolutely everybody on the internet. Like,
Pretty much. There's something
Yeah.
in that video for anyone and everyone to be offended by.
yeah,
I love it. It was fantastic.
I know. Even the part where he's like, I don't know, he's kind of making fun of people doing playthroughs, play with me's or whatever, and live streaming, except for he's making himself cry and like
I know
articulating the
that was
decline
great.
of his mental health.
Completed a whole day by finding, or he played the keyboard. He found a flashlight and he cried 4 times.
Yeah, 5
And
times.
that was the
Forget to cry 5
completed.
times. Yeah,
And that was you completed the day.
yeah,
I was like, holy fuck.
yeah. It's pretty nuts. Or like his reaction video, like where he's reacting.
Yeah, the
to
reaction of the reaction
Yeah.
to yeah.
Yeah, reacception.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when he's doing that and he's kind of
it's like
I mean,
explaining.
the whole thing seemed to just be kind of crapping on internet content in general. Like the whole idea of
Just how it's devolved, because I mean that's become a thing, is like people react to reaction videos and then so on and so forth. Like
Dude,
that's
I've seen
content that people watch.
reacting to Bo Burnham's react to reaction video. Like, and I was like, man, it's like we didn't even watch the thing to begin with. But yeah,
They don't realize that they're part of the joke.
I don't know. What was your favorite song in the special?
I'd say a little bit of everything. That was amazing.
The Internet, Welcome to the Internet. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
was great.
That one's nuts.
We'll just give you a little bit of everything all the time. It's ominous, and it's true. It's like it's happened. That's already a thing. Like, it's the constant input is meant to just deaden your senses to just how terrible the quality of life is getting.
Yeah, well, and also like our attention span, and the attention span thing was huge throughout the entire special as well, right? It was like almost every song ends with like a hard cut to the next piece, right? So it's like engaging your dopamine circuits and all that. And then I've watched that with 2 people, and both times, by the time he gets to the song where he's like, "Is this playing in the background? Are you on your phone?" Both times, the person I'm with is on their phone.
I know. I glared at the TV for a second because I had actually just pulled up my phone because I was replying to text messages.
Yeah, I will sit and I beeline my concentration. I'm not very good at multitasking, so when I watch stuff, I did actually watch his thing like frame for
With
frame all the way through. Yeah. But
I was like half hosting a little, like I said, that was the dinner party content. Yeah. So
but I'm not,
that was playing and I was moving around cleaning up dishes and stuff like that at the same time.
I'm not the typical representative though too. Like I got like, notifications, like most people clear all their notifications as they pop up. I'm not I'm never doing that. I'm like, I go in at the end of the day, I have like 50 notifications and I just start being like, I don't care about that one, don't care about that one. And I just like pick my favorites, which is usually just like messages from people of consequence. Like sometimes other times like things will come up and it'll be a message, but I don't have time to reply to it, so I open it and then I just close it right away, and I don't like engage with it. But I've also
done that sometimes, and then I forget to respond.
Yeah, well, I spent 3 years with no smartphone. I downgraded to a what was it? An Alcatel flip phone, just because I thought I was being too, staring at my phone a bunch, and yeah. So like when my phone died, I was like, no, that's it. I'm going back to like old school stuff, and I'll only use the internet when I'm connected to Wi-Fi. And I think it must have done some good things for me because I don't seem to be as all consumed by my device as a lot of people are. That being said, the first time I got a smartphone back, I was like, I'm getting something nice this time, and it's pretty great. Another piece of news anyone might be interested in is I'm gonna start doing a YouTube series on reading terms of service, because for a conspiracy podcast, that'd be a great little side series. Sometimes I just read these things through and I'm like, what the heck are we, like, we're just giving them permission to do absolutely anything with everything all of the time. It's nuts. Like
it's part of being connected to everything, right? Is that you're connected to everything. That road goes both ways.
Yeah. The Internet of Things, man. Oh, man, did you guys hear about Amazon's... Okay, we're going to start segueing into the conspiracy side of this thing, but this is just before our intermission. I want to bring this up. Have you heard about Amazon sidewalks?
No.
Okay, so all Amazon smart home devices or whatever were built with high frequency radio transmitter and receiver technology inside them, basically
Mhm.
Bluetooth connectivity. And they just updated their terms of service, I believe, last month on the 6th, to finally activate these pieces of those devices.
Oh
So
boy.
basically, there's a few things that are weird about, like, say, Alexa Mini Dot, right? One, there's no voice recognition software built into the Echo, right? All it is a microphone with a connection to the internet. So it's 24 hours a day streaming all of the audio coming
Audio that
into
it's
it
hearing
back to
until
an
it
Amazon
registers a
data center.
command.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's processed at this data center. And then when that data center hears you say her name, that's when she wakes up and it goes through commands. So they take all of your audio input and they compress it down into a script and they store that script. And this is all in their terms of service. Anyways, no one ever reads those though, right? So
That's kind of why I
yeah,
don't
so if
like
you've
the
had
Google
one
Home things
plugged
and
in,
shit.
yeah, if you've had one plugged in for say a year and a half, then they have a year and a half of your script stored if they want to. They might refresh it or whatever. That's still pretty nuts. And it also says in there, obviously, that they give that access to law enforcement or any agency
That requests it for
yeah,
legal
of course.
purposes.
And
Or
then the weird part of that is that, like, we had Bill, I think it was C-34 or whatever, where we gave away all our privacy rights or under the Harper administration. And then in America, they have the Patriot Act, where pretty much the same thing happened. It's just like now they have the right to do these things for the sake of safety and security and national safety. Yeah, of course. But it still just means that they're storing your data. And then that became a problem when they started using metadata to get idiots elected into office in the presidential suite. So it was never really the biggest problem was never particularly your government using your data maliciously, but just the fact that the data exists so that malicious parties can access or hack that data and then use it to do malicious things, like get a stupid reality TV show host in charge of an entire country and then put softwood tariffs on Canadian lumber so that I had to move south to find work. Anyways, stop looking. So yeah, Amazon Sidewalks, they finally updated their terms of service and now they'll be activating these high frequency transmitters and receivers inside of their Echoes and their ring lights and sharing the facial data software and these scripts through Amazon's own new private network. So it's a new private network. So every time there's an Alexa device within a half mile of another Alexa device, they can transmit the information directly between those two devices, creating their own private network of utility, which I believe they're going to be able to use to basically build a giant supercomputer to process data. Pretty crazy, right? And so you now, it's just not your device, man. It's Amazon's device, and they're in your house. It's so crazy. Yeah, so it's a sidewalk. It's a sidewalk between devices. So as of last month, you'd no longer, for all the data and all the audio and facial recognition software going through your Amazon devices, no longer need to be connected to the internet in order to transfer that information back to Amazon data storage.
Because it can just go through another nearby Amazon device.
They just need to be plugged in. You might not be able to use it, but Amazon can. It's pretty crazy,
amazing.
Right? Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to start reading terms of service and agreements. Let's take a quick little intermission break here, and then we'll be right back with Cindy James.
Sorry?
And we're recording. This is uncanny. She walks in, beginning of both. Genius. So Mr. Stanley just had his caffeine liquor, and now he's got his zoomies going. He's like a cat after you give it catnip, or when you come home from vacation.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna get into the second half of the podcast here, the actual conspiracy part, which is usually the larger part. Now,
really.
Last week, Mr. Stanley wasn't here, but I went through and we talked a bit about the MK Ultra experiments and stuff that's happened there. And if you do a little extra digging, you find some really strange people's lives completely ruined by experiments and psychological ones. But the most curious case that I've run across is the case of Cindy James. And Cindy James, her full name was Cynthia Elizabeth Hack James. She had a marriage and then renamed herself.
Wasn't this still like 30 years ago? Like this was in the 80s or something, wasn't it?
This is almost in the 90s, just before the 90s. So
yeah. But yeah, I remember it being before I was born. Exactly. Yeah. So I've read about this and looked at it before. So I'm somewhat familiar with it.
It's one of those crazy unsolved mystery cases from Canada. I'm sure that we made it onto that TV show network, the Unsolved Mysteries. Guaranteed.
Probably.
Yeah, because stop vibrating. I don't need. Sorry, my camera is also my phone. Everyone is watching. So yeah, I'm gonna jump into this, and I'm just gonna read this article, and then I'll bring up some other things towards the end. Mr. Stanley, feel free to contribute in any way you feel necessary. Can we talk about the best arm pose in the world, though?
How's that the best one? Isn't the best like
look how big
physical
my
pose?
arms look.
I thought it's supposed to be like the fucking behind the back or like this one or something like that. It's supposed to be your best one.
You're thinking the what has what's it? I don't have.
Yeah. You gotta get those ones. You're fucking.
This one where you
I can't do it with my lighting's horrible.
Like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not very jacked. Yeah, no, it's good, but I mean this one. Anyway. This one makes your biceps look huge.
What, putting them forward like that?
Yeah. You want to bring everything else closer to the camera and put your head as far back and down as you can.
I don't know if I could do that. It would hurt my neck, maybe.
Look at it.
Or it might be good for it. Who knows?
Probably not. Never know. No, not with your spine. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into some of this Cynthia Lewis. So I got this. It's a rather long article. So I'm gonna read it. I'm not a very good reader, but here we go.
You could have me read it instead.
That's an excellent idea, Mr. Stanley. Go ahead and Google Cindy James, and it should be the first one on unsolvedmysteries.fandom.com.
Cindy James.
Stanley, by the way, everybody, is an excellent reader. We learned that at Mental Health Awareness Week at work.
Woo! Yeah, all right. Real name, Cynthia Elizabeth Hack James. Nickname, Cindy. Location, Richmond, British Columbia. Date, June 8th, 1989. So we're looking at 32 years ago.
Yep.
Hot dog. And you just want me to read through this whole synopsis of the ordeal?
Yeah, go for it.
I guess it's only like 3 or 4 large paragraphs.
I
mean like 30.
Yeah, I mean a big. Hey man, that's an extraordinary effort when you read like I do.
Fair enough. Details. Okay, on June 8th, 1989, the quiet city of Richmond, a suburb of Vancouver, British Columbia, was shocked when a body was found lying in the yard of an abandoned house. The victim was identified as 44-year-old nurse Cindy James. She had been drugged and strangled, and her hands and feet had been tied behind her back. She had previously been the victim of harassment and assault by an unknown assailant. Despite this, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police believed that her death was either an accident or suicide. Cindy had graduated from nursing school in 1966.
Can we take a second?
Can we
take a second to talk about the accidental suicide, being strangled with your arms and hands tied behind your back?
Yeah, right.
So I know her family didn't settle for that analysis at all, but
no, they pursued murder charges for a while, but they never got them.
Yeah, they didn't, and that kind of all becomes explained in some of the details I'll add at the end of this. Sorry, Ted Stanley, to interrupt. Go ahead and continue.
All right, graduated from nursing school. Okay, she later became the administrator for a preschool for children with behavioral and emotional issues. She was married but did not have any children of her own. In July 1982, she and her husband, Roy Makepeace, separated. 4 months later, she began receiving mysterious and sometimes threatening phone calls. During the next 7 years, she reported nearly 100 incidents of harassment. 5 were violent physical attacks, while others were whispering or silent phone calls. Things got worse after she involved the police. At night, she heard prowlers. Her porch lights were smashed and her phone lines severed. Dead cats were left in her yard. Her dog was nearly strangled to death. According to her friend, Agnes Woodcock, bizarre notes with letters cut from magazines began to appear on her doorstep. She believed that someone was trying to scare her to death. She became reluctant and frightened to give details. Over time, the police began to doubt her stories. Fun. One night in January 1983, Agnes dropped by Cindy's house for a visit and knocked on the door. There was no answer, so she assumed she was taking her bath. As she investigated, which is also weird, she just lets herself into the house.
Well, I think at this point, so some things that aren't mentioned in the article is that she had already been divorced from her husband and kind of distressed in that way. And he said something super, like he was like, you know, it could be quite dangerous out there living alone, right? And but by the way, if you Google her husband, even though he's a doctor, fucking nothing pops up except for the unsolved mystery stuff and cases where, Yeah, and like a graveyard record. Like you can find out where he's buried, but for lots of doctors, especially doctors of psychology, it's not a
Yeah,
super popular field, and they usually have something about them on Wiki, but there's zero on Wikipedia. So I find that,
that's really weird.
yeah, I know it's almost like someone went there and got rid of it.
Almost.
Yeah.
All right, Cindy's house. Okay. As she investigated, she came across Cindy outside, crouched down with a nylon stocking tied tightly around her neck. She said that she'd gone out to the garage to get a box and someone had grabbed her from behind. All she saw were the assailant's white sneakers. Due to the harassment and violence, she moved to a new house, painted her car, and changed her last name. She also hired a private investigator named Ozzy Caban. That's Kaban.
And the nylon was actually tied so tightly around her neck that Agnes had to cut it off with a knife. She couldn't get it undone. Yeah.
Jesus. The police continued their investigation and questioned Cindy several times. Ozzy later reported that she would not tell them the entire story. She would be evasive, withhold information, and not act as a normal victim would do so. When the police gave her a polygraph test, the examiner also claimed that she was withholding information. Her mother, Tilly Hack, thinks the reason for her reluctance was that her attacker had threatened her family. By naming him, they would be killed. Fair assumption. Also entirely possible. On the night of January 30th, 1984, Ozzy heard strange sounds coming over a two-way radio he had given Cindy and went straight to her house. He went around it and found it was locked. Looking through a window, he found her lying on the floor with a paring knife through her hand. She was taken to the hospital where she later recalled being attacked and a needle going into her arm. Police never found fingerprints from a suspect, and there was no independent corroboration. Cindy saw this person sometimes accompanied by one or two others, or sometimes she said there were 2 or 3 people, but police could never find a suspect. The threatening phone calls continued, but they were too short to trace. There were never ones when the police had 24-hour surveillance on her house for days on end with up to 14 officers, but when surveillance was off her house, another incident would happen, which makes sense. If somebody's actually harassing you,
Yep.
they wouldn't go there when the police are there.
Yeah, 100%. Even actually, there was one RCMP officer ended up living with her for a while. It seems like kind of weird. What do you call that? Conflict of interest or whatever. But he was like between houses and he was waiting for a rental, so he was actually living with her, even though he's one of the investigators assigned to her case. And what else? And then also, I believe for that polygraph test, the main suspect at the time was the ex-husband, but the polygraph tester refused to test him because of his heart medication could mess with the results. And then Cindy James, also her polygraph test came back with multiple negative results, saying that she was withholding information or lying. But I mean, it's a polygraph test, and at this point, she's been had an attempt made on her life. So I could imagine the pure amount of stress that you're feeling at that moment wouldn't give you exactly conclusive results. Can't believe the polygraph tester wasn't like, no, we can't test her. She's been distressed. But whatever.
Yeah, exactly. When you're under duress like that, you can't take a polygraph test because your heart rate does fucky things anyway.
That's right. Which is why they wouldn't test the husband, the ex-husband.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So continuing. All right. As police became skeptical of the harassment, Cindy's parents believed her attacker was staying away to make them suspicious of her. On December 11th, 1985, she was found dazed and semi-conscious, lying in a ditch 6 miles from her house. She was wearing a man's work boot and glove and suffering from hypothermia. Cuts and bruises covered her body. A black nylon stocking, again, had been tied tightly around her neck. A needle mark was found on her arm. She had no memory of what had happened. Agnes and her husband Tom stayed with Cindy to keep her company and help protect her. One night in April 1986, they heard noises and awoke to find the basement in flames and the phone dead. Tom went to alert the neighbors. He saw a man at the curb and asked him to call the fire department. Instead, he simply ran off down the street. The police suspected that Cindy had staged the incident.
Yeah.
They found no dust or fingerprints disturbed on the outside of the windowsill. The fire was set inside the house. In order to set it, it was thought the perpetrator would have needed to climb through a specific window. It was also considered odd that Cindy still freely walked her dog during the attacks. Cindy's doctor committed her to a local psychiatric ward, believing she was becoming suicidal. 10 weeks later, she left the hospital. Her father, Otto Hack, said that she had finally admitted to her family and friends that she knew more than she was saying. She told him that she believed she knew the identity of the perpetrator and would go after them herself. In October 1988, Roy received a bizarre message on his answering machine. The raspy voice said, "Cindy, dead meat, soon." On October 26th, she came home from work and was attacked in her carport. She was later found unconscious in her car, nude from the waist down. A nylon stocking was tied around her neck, and her arms and legs were hogtied with a second one. Duct tape was found over her mouth in an attempt to keep her from breathing. She went into a coma but survived. In spring of 1989, she reported to her family and friends that the attacks seemed to be decreasing. She seemed to be feeling better for the first time in a while. On May 25th, 1989, 6 years and 7 months after the first threatening phone call, Cindy disappeared. On the same day, her car was found in a neighborhood shopping plaza parking lot. Inside were groceries and a wrapped gift. There was blood on the driver's side door, and items from her wallet were under the car. 2 weeks later, her body was found at the abandoned house about 1 kilometer from the shopping plaza. It looked like she had been brutally murdered. Her hands and feet were bound together behind her back. A black nylon stocking was tied tightly around her neck. Yet an autopsy revealed that she died from an overdose of morphine, the sedative flurazepam. Did I say that right? I don't even know.
Yep.
And other drugs. Police concluded that she had committed suicide and closed this case in July of 1989. Ozzy did not believe that Cindy would have been able to stage the scene, but others believed it was possible. In Vancouver, the coroner ruled that her death was not suicide, an accident, or a murder. They determined that she died of an unknown event. Otto and Tilly never doubted that she was murdered. Otto believed the police did not investigate the possibility of homicide or of somebody murdering her, instead zeroing in on trying to prove that she committed suicide. They believe someone in Vancouver is getting away with murder. Suspects. During the investigation, Roy, her ex-husband, was a suspect, along with Pat McBride, a lover of Cindy's who was a policeman.
This is the policeman that was living with her. Which the attacks did decrease during that time, but still.
The man seen at the curb running away during the fire is also a suspect, but apparently nobody knows who he is. Extra notes. This case first aired on the February 13th, 1991 episode. It was also profiled on A Current Affair and various other media publications. Unsolved. Sadly, Otto and Tilly have since passed away, so nobody's actively trying to pursue it anymore at all.
Yeah. So, how does that article make you feel, Mr. Stanley?
I mean, I feel like it's just another tragedy in a long line of the police force not actually giving a fuck about the people that they're trying to protect, and they just assume suspicion on victims, like by default.
Yeah, but then again, there are some things that seem mighty suspicious when you look into her case more, and you can look at the police records and stuff where it does seem like maybe she's doing some of these things to herself, and then also her not sharing the information with the RCMP that she's sharing with her family, almost as though she's afraid that someone with like power or the ability to find those might be the perpetrator. Right?
Well, but in that same vein, she was submitted to a psychiatric ward and then released 10 weeks later. Like, if no incidents occurred during that time, clearly she was, or like even if somebody was perpetrating her, or if she was doing it herself, if nothing happened during her time in the psychiatric ward, and then you release her and stuff starts happening again right away, instant resubmission into at least some sort of protected institute should have been an option or an idea, or like, you know.
So, Mr. Stanley, something did happen in the mental institute.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go all the way back here to Roy Makepeace. That's her ex-husband, right? A psychologist. I believe he worked in UBC in Vancouver there. And he was about 18 years her senior. He met her when she was 19 is when they got married. They might have met sooner. Yeah, I know, right? Good luck. Find stuff on the guy. All you find is like cases. And anyways, so Dr. Makepeace, she did eventually go under hypnosis, actually, during her lifetime, right?
She was 19.
She went, 19 when they met. 18 years her senior. Pretty steep gap, but I mean, it happens, right?
Oh, I found a more detailed thing with a bit more details about just like the random things happening. Yeah. It was like, three dead cats found her yard and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Her life was nuts, man. And then just the phone calls that she was receiving. But then the RCMP checked her phone records and they found no evidence of phone calls, almost as though she was picking up the phone and hearing
and just
stuff.
Hearing voices.
That's right. And so, like a low grade.
Well, even if that's like advanced schizophrenia, exactly. Like.
Yeah. But her husband, Dr.
Why was that never brought up as a suspicion, or was that was part of the submission to the psychiatric ward? I assume.
Well, I mean, that's the full article, right? That's the kind of, if you went to watch anything about this on the internet or Unsolved Mysteries on TV, that's what you would see is like that basic summary right there. You're going to glance over all the details that seem to actually, open a veil into deeper knowledge. But if you do enough digging, you get some of this stuff. So Dr. Roy Makepeace, psychologist, ex-husband. When she went under regressive hypnosis therapy, she had a memory that seemed to have been erased. And if you look into my previous podcast, you'll know that the MK Ultra experiments were massively successful in actually erasing people's memory. Because if you traumatize someone's brain enough, it'll just shut things down. It doesn't want that to be part of it. It interferes with your operation as an organism. But the most interesting part is that they went on a trip to Vancouver Island. And in that trip, they went to go visit Dr. Roy's friend, Dr. James Tyhurst. Now, go ahead and look up Dr. James Tyhurst, Mr. Stanley. So this guy was involved with CIA experiments for a long time. He was another psychologist, good friends with Dr. Roy Makepeace, and this is who she remembered going to visit. When she was at the island, she had a memory of walking in on them disposing of bodies. Dead bodies.
Our government's deliberate helplessness.
Yeah. But if you... Tyhurst is Tyhurst.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this guy was involved with the MK Ultra experiments and other experiments and sub-projects with the CIA. And some of the things that he did includes LSD tests on more than 300 unwilling patients, unknowing patients. So he didn't have these people consent. He just experimented with LSD on them. Also, here's another one that even pops up in the Cindy James case. He also experimented on forced morphine addiction.
He did some weird shit. Like I'm reading one thing that popped up. Patient Jill Gorman signed on as a slave during therapy sessions with one of British Columbia's most prominent psychiatrists. She had no idea what lay in store. He was whipping her on her naked back. She was bowing down to kiss his hands and feet.
Yeah, there's at least 4 cases of him trying to turn basically
women into literal slaves.
Yeah, and they always came to him in his professional capacity as a psychologist to get help with depression or their emotional issues, and instead he's trying to turn them into sex slaves, which is just deplorable. He also did experiments with the CIA on interrogation techniques, mind control, and sensory deprivation, all these things. So, yeah. Good friends with her ex-husband. So when I read into this and then we see this creepy dude connected to her husband with a bunch of information not available about him, I think about it and it's like, it seems pretty mighty suspicious because I am about 7 million% sure that Cindy James got MK Ultra'd. She had her mind broken and...
the justice system is just shit. Reading about this?
Yeah.
It's
right?
terrible.
So they're just
blowing it off because the guy's a wealthy doctor, so he just gets away with fucking horrible cases of abuse. Oh,
there's that. And there's also the backing of the CIA. If it actually was attached to an intelligence agency, what are you going to do? They're going to wipe every record. Right? They're going to do stuff. I mean, I could imagine being an RCMP officer and then having like a black suit come up and be like, hello, I work with the Central Intelligence Agency. The case that you're looking into right now is a matter of national security. And you must discontinue all beliefs or not believe the victim, blah, 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 blah. So this is why she was so reluctant to open up about the details that she did have about the known assailant. This is why she had the trust issues with her ex-husband. This is why she left him. It's because her mind had been broken already. And what is something that we see every time that all these violent incidents occur? Almost every time she has an injection or in her stomach, drugs that they're using to MK Ultra her and modify her memories and make her forget stuff. Like all you can remember is someone's white shoes. It probably had a full face-to-face conversation, but she's like high off her kite on like MDA and mind control juices, man. You're giving her like LSD and morphine and what was that one? Flurazepam? No idea what that does, but I'm assuming if you put it in a cocktail with morphine, it's probably something they've been experimenting on. So it seems like the accumulation.
Insomnia. Hold on. So lorazepam is used to treat insomnia, Diazepam is in a class of medications called benzodiazepines.
Oh,
Diazepines.
benzos,
It
man.
works by slowly activating in the brain to allow
Yeah,
sleep. So it also knocks you unconscious. There you
yeah.
go.
Also, if you give someone too much benzodiazepam, it basically lurches them into psychosis. So if you overdose on benzodiazepams, you will.
Diazepines, benzodiazepines.
Yeah, sure. Prams, peens, whatever, generic, non-generic. Uh, I'm no chemist or whatever, but I've actually seen someone do this where they're on the wrong benzos, wrong meds, wrong combination, right? They're going full blown psychosis, and then you're not sleeping, and they won't remember large swaths of what's happening, but they'll be going on and they'll be doing stuff, and they'll remember just key things. Yeah. Someone very close to me actually had to go through this during PTSD treatment, and then they were in the hospital for like 2 months. Really hard for them, right? So. Yeah. So what do you think about that, Mr. Stanley? What's your conclusion with Cindy James? You think she did this to herself and strangled herself to death and overdosed herself after duct taping her own mouth and tying her hands and feet behind her back?
I feel like it's honestly impossible to know the truth.
You think it was an accidental event?
If she was, no, that sounds ridiculous. But if she was like an at-risk schizophrenic, like suffering schizophrenic, then why was she allowed to just live a free and like self-responsible life?
She wasn't.
People have a care person in their life actively monitoring them 24/7.
Yeah, well, it appears more like that she developed serious mental health disorders,
particularly
after leaving her husband.
As time goes on. Yeah, exactly.
Specifically after leaving her husband.
Yeah.
Everything before that, she was a normal woman.
Person.
Yeah.
And then as soon as this guy they divorced, it's a kind of a messy divorce. He says some weird shit, and then suddenly her life gets more and more fucking wild and out of control.
Yeah. And then you have a polygraph tester saying, "No, I can't test the husband. His heart might not, blah blah blah, because of his heart medication." But he's like, "But this extremely emotionally distraught woman, yeah, absolutely. Like, who is telling that guy? Look, she needs negative results. We need to tell people that she's lying."
Yeah. They wouldn't even have had to say that to him. They would have just had to say, "We think she's lying."
Yeah,
and then as long as she's got an accelerated heart rate, it seems like she's lying about everything. Yeah. So whatever.
Or not even to mention that if you could like get a polygraph tester onto your side, no one else is reading that thing. He'd just have to be like lies and just circle some stuff and be like, this year is like abnormal patterns.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. I look at that thing, it looks like a tachometer.
It's just a weird squiggly pencil. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Makes no fucking sense to me.
Yeah, that's wild.
But
yeah, and I feel really bad for her too. Also, this is something that happened super close to home. And I bet you'd never realized that there was a kind of a connection there to the MK Ultra experiments.
Well, because like I said, I've previously touched on this, and I read about it because I was looking into MK Ultra because my dad was telling me about it.
Yeah,
and he was like, that was when he was alive. He was active during those times, and he's like, this shit was happening, and like we were going to the States. He was going with his friends and visiting people, and they're like, they would sometimes meet people that like he'd go and visit one of his friends, and his friend would be like, oh, I'll invite somebody over that they hadn't talked to for like a couple of months, and the person would just be like, I don't know who you are, and then just hang up.
Yeah,
that was a thing.
Right.
People would just didn't remember like long-term acquaintances or people that they had associated with like nothing. And there's no like phone records or anything you can actively look at the time because there weren't cell phones. Like we have smartphones now, so you could go back in your call logs and be like, dude, we've talked like 30 fucking times. What are you talking about?
Yeah, those times were crazy, man. And then just like the free reign over the drug community, like talked about in the last episode, but the CIA and Russia were basically having a who can buy the most LSD war for all these experiments. It's just nuts. Yeah. And then Operation Midnight Climax. Have you heard about Operation Midnight Climax?
What's not?
Operation Midnight Climax was headed by George White of the CIA, and yeah, and it was like he had a bunch of prostitutes lure men in, and then they'd MK Ultra them. So then,
I did hear about this. I didn't actually know that's what it's called.
Well, I mean, the CIA comes up with some pretty cool names.
MK Ultra, yep. Financial research program. Okay. Started in 1954.
George White.
Prostitutes on the CIA payroll were instructed to lure clients back to safe houses where they were surreptitiously plied with a wide range of substances, including LSD, and monitored behind one-way glass.
I know. This stuff's crazy, man. Like, And that
Were instructed in the use of post-coital questioning to investigate whether the victims could be convinced to involuntarily reveal secrets. What the fuck? They
post-coital.
trained them to be like inquisitors?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, yeah, exactly.
The
No, it
victims were
was nuts.
sometimes fed subliminal messages in attempts to induce them to involuntary actions, including criminal activities such as robbery, assault, and assassination. Many of the CIA operatives involved in the experiments voluntarily indulged in the drugs and prostitutes for recreational purposes.
Yep.
Wow.
I know, Mr. Stanley.
What the fuck?
Oh.
When you give a branch of any kind that kind of free reign, like of course they're going to do corrupt shit. It's
Oh, yeah.
People are
Especially
terrible.
That George White guy is super creepy dude too. Like he probably just wanted videos of all the sexy time on top of everything else he's doing, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's just like pitches it and he's like, let me tell you guys what we did in order to get ourselves some mind control going on, okay? Everything we've been doing so far, the drugs, the interrogation, the manipulation of a person's mental state, but they getting their dick sucked. And the CIA was like, bravo!
Yep.
Give that man a raise.
Perfect.
Oh, my
Perfect.
God. Yeah. So this is why I have this podcast, man.
Jesus.
I know. The world is crazy. Super freaking crazy. So.
Yep. Well, it makes the idea of like shadow organizations that do a bunch of terrible shit to society. It's like, well, of course there are.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like that. I mean, I talk about
look
it all
at
the time.
This was declassified recently. This was like less than 10 or maybe 12 years ago that a bunch of this was declassified and given to the public. And it's just like, oh, by the way, these actually exist.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. By the way, we performed.
The CIA totally destroys other countries and people in our own country and does terrible things all over the fucking world.
Oh yeah.
And they're just allowed to because they can.
Yeah.
Because they have no actual oversight and no transparency. They can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah. And then when they're done with this experimenting and they think they have conclusive data and they have an overabundance of drugs, so they just sell it back into the black market to fund more black projects for the future. Yeah. Right? That's like even back in the day when they're helping the Afghanis fight the Russians or whatever, they were also like peddling opium because the Afghanistan produces like 95% of the world's opium. Or yeah, exactly. So they use that. And it's you see like what the world powers and the departments of defense and the intelligence agencies and everything they're focusing on at a particular time, and then whatever drug or commodity they're using to fund their black market research or their black projects, they use the black market. And then so it's like back in the MK Ultra days, you have like LSD and ecstasy running rampant in like the hippie world, right? In the drug use world. Mm-hmm. And then now, post getting towards the end of the Iraq or the Afghanistan war and everything, we have a massive flood of opiates and fentanyl, right? From things that are going on in the world. Yeah, so it's like, who's selling that stuff? And guaranteed it's coming from like these super powerful organizations that need to fund their stuff through black money. So
Yep. Yeah, because they're supposed to be unmonitored and untraceable.
They're supposed to be ethical,
like, independent.
Yeah, well, performing scientific.
No, nothing about these organizations says that they're supposed to be ethical.
No, not at all. Except for
they exist solely for the purpose of making these unethical experiments.
Countries are supposed to be held to a higher standards, right? Like your government.
Well, the public government is. This is literally the CIA was created to operate as an independent arm
separation
of the government that is
military-industrial complex from
exactly
arms of government,
unmitigated in any way by government bureaucracy.
Yep, and yeah, but it's still just super depressing because. The Geneva Convention, like Nazis did very similar things in World War II, and we deplore them for it. But government's getting away with it in the modern day.
Well, and then
we make movies about them and how cool it'd be to be a CIA agent. It's like, not really, man.
Yeah, no, and then the States gave safe haven to so many of these Nazi scientists, and used their knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
And there it is, guys. That's the case of Cindy James. What else should we talk about before we're done here, Mr. Stanley?
What else even is there to talk about?
What do you call a fish wearing a bow tie? Sophisticated.
Wow.
I know. All right, everybody. I'm SamwellKrom on Instagram. I am SamwellKrom on Twitch. I am SamwellKrom on YouTube. Don't forget, I never did do this in my previous videos, but even those of you who are watching the video are not liking it or, sharing it. So this is super early in my video content creation on YouTube. So if you guys could hit that like button, smash the subscribe, don't forget to hit the bell, and share this with all your friends so that I can have more than I'm going up in the world here. I got like 12 followers, which is a lot more than the one I had when I first started this. So I really appreciate everybody's support, and go ahead and share this stuff with your friends. And if you have any topics you want me to cover, put it down in those comments. If you know of any conspiracy theories or video games or anything you want me to cover in this podcast, I'd be happy to. And thanks for all your love and support. Don't forget to subscribe to all my other social medias because I'm an attention whore. Stanley, you have anything you want to promote before we end this?
Not really. Play video games, they're sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So far, not a single person has wanted to promote any of their own stuff, but I'm the only one doing. Yeah, I'm the only one doing the streaming and the podcasting. So yeah, there it is, everyone. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch, where I live stream at least once a week, which is a total lie because I probably don't. Everyone have a good day. Peace out.